and I am the founder of Texas for Medical Freedom and United States for Medical Freedom. So I wanted to welcome you because I'm the one who put this whole thing together because I'm really trying to help people not be so fearful. And there's multiple ways you can go about this, event tonight. You might hear something from me that hits home for you. You might hear something from Jennifer or from Dr. Fleming. But we really want to give you guys tools to use, whether you work in the medical field or not, and encouragement. So that's what I hope that you get out of tonight. I've helped thousands of families and never accepted a dime. So I'm proud of that because I'm not in it for the money and I never will be, even if one day we do decide to do more with money. Because with money, you can do more things. We could do more lawsuits, for example. But I'm just saying.
If you are pro-vaccine, you're welcome here. If you're anti-vaccine, you're welcome here and anywhere in between. In fact, welcome to the medical freedom movement if you just care about choice in medicine. And I totally agree that you shouldn't need an exemption, right? Who here wants to have to ask your business or your job, your boss, for permission to say no? Nobody wants that situation. But that's where we are. That's just reality. That's reality for us in the medical industry, and it's reality right now. Should it be that way? No. Should we push back? Yes. However, there's a lot of people here that are hurting that need to keep their jobs. And I don't like exemptions for many, many reasons. Number one, you should just have the right to say no. Number two, they can remove it from you, right? So if you ask them, you beg them for permission, then they can remove it from you and say, sorry, we don't accept your exemption anymore, which is what's happened in California and New York, so many different places. It went little by little, and even in Texas, it's gone little by little. If you guys know already the process for exemptions from the state, which we do have exemptions, your kids don't have to get their shots to go to school, and so that's nothing new. And in fact, if you don't know that, your kids don't have to get their shots to go to school. You just need an exemption. And you can go onto the state's website, which, by the way, they changed the website this year. Really interesting to me. So the website now has a dash in it, so it's a little harder to find it. So I'm going to give it to you. My phone is over there once I get through these ones. I got those ones. But, I'm going to give it to you so that you guys can access it pretty easily. But basically, the exemptions for students, if you're in college, if you have children who are in college, if you have anybody going to a state school, if you have anybody in there is a website. You go on the website, you order 5 copies, and you and every member of your family's name, there's a list, you just put your mom's name, dad's name, every single child, and you order 5 copies for everybody. It's free, and you can have them on hand. Do not turn them in until you're ready to turn them in, which means your school is asking for an immunization form. Your job is asking for an immunization form. You take one of those forms, you go and get it notarized, and if you want to check every 11 box on there that you don't want to receive any X, Y, and Z vaccines, go ahead. Some people have been writing influenza because it's not on there. Some people have been writing COVID-19 on it because it's not on there. So go ahead and get it notarized. Once you get it notarized, you have a specific amount of time to turn that in, and once you turn it in, it's good for 2 years. So that is the process for school, for college, for everyone. If you have a state job, if your kid goes to a state school, and it's been that way for years. I think it's a major fail on the part of medical freedom fighters that we haven't added influenza to that, and that's where it started. So this started with nurses getting forced to get their flu shot to keep their job, and many nurses lost their jobs for not wanting to do that. So we should have been doing that 5 years ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't woke, until my child had an injury, so I wasn't around. However, there's been issues that we've tried to accomplish. There's things that we've been successful at, and there's things that haven't been so successful. I started my group because I'm passionate about all freedom aspects, not just medical freedom, but medical freedom is where I chose to infiltrate the system, try to, make a change and do something different. And I really believe in your choice in medicine. I would fight for your choice to get the vaccine just as much as not receive it, although I do have reasons for not wanting one. But I do think it's appropriate for a nurse, which my medical ethical principles, there are 6, One of those is autonomy. Autonomy means your choice in medicine. And so if I believe in autonomy, then if I educate a person who comes in, I work critical care in the DFW area, and if someone comes in and they tell me, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, I don't accept blood transfusions. I can say, sir, you're gonna die if you don't receive that blood transfusion, but he still has the right to say no. So he has the right to say no to me. I can think he's making a really poor decision. You can think like a certain desired outcome should be the case, right? And that's why I think it's absolutely irrelevant what someone's opinion is of what your choice is, because it doesn't matter if you agree with me. What matters is I still have a choice. And let's hope that we can keep that, right? Because if we can't for the nurses, what's going to happen to all the patients? Right? It's going to have a trickle-down effect, not just every business. It's going to be every business, everybody. But if they're going to take my medical freedom from me, then what is going to happen to you? And let me just say that some of these hospital systems, which by the way, I don't speak for my hospital system, so if anyone knows where I work, I don't speak for them. I'm speaking for myself, and I'll speak for my organization since I started them, but I don't speak for my hospital system, so I don't need a lawsuit like Peter McCullough, unfortunately. I can't believe what's going on right now. It's ridiculous. But so I'm not speaking for anyone in my hospital system. I'm speaking for myself. But they say, like a tagline in one of the major hospitals around here is trust Methodist. Trust Methodist. Or, all these different things. And you're like, and a lot of people have said, go online, leave a note for them and give a review that you can't trust Methodist. You can't trust, Baylor Scott and White. You can't trust some of these places potentially if they're going to strip you of your medical rights and your freedom. There are patient rights. And if I were to get treated by my own hospital system, am I not a patient? I would be a patient as well, right? I would be receiving medical care from them. And some of us have enrolled in medical insurance through our hospital systems and would be treated by our system as patients. And patients have rights. There are bills of rights at every hospital. Please find them out. If you're ever in the hospital or you have a loved one in the hospital, there's a patient bill of rights. And I want you to access that information either online or at the hospital system. Say, I would like a copy. You're entitled to a copy. But exemptions, not everyone is in the same position, right? Jennifer and I are in completely different positions at this point in time. I have recently become a nurse. This is not new news. People have followed my journey. If you've been with us for 2 years now, I recently became a nurse. I graduated in November, got my first job in February, loved doing critical care, loved being a nurse. This is a second degree for me. My first degree is actually Bible and theology, believe it or not, and my master's training was in counseling. So I was all set up to do LPC. I was going to be a licensed professional counselor and chose to go be a stay-at-home mom for 6 years and raise my needs. Then after that, I was running for waters and all these things that moms do, and I was like, I can't picture sitting across from somebody for 8 hours a day, like just sitting at a desk. So nursing came naturally to me. I've taken care of many of my family members, and most nurses in the hospital would say, are you a nurse? Because my mom's had like 60 major surgeries, and so I would say no, but I kind of earned my degree in the trenches before I ever went to nursing school, so I knew quite a bit. But why I joined nursing now is because if every doctor, if every nurse leaves that believes in your choice in medicine, what is going to happen to them? And it's so tempting sometimes to be like, drop that badge, drop the mask, and be like, we're out. And I get that, and I love that about so many people. And I don't know, dumb, because I'm the opposite. I'm like, let me get in there. Let's do this. Let's stick it out, because if we don't, what will happen to all of these people? And in fact, if one day we can even create something different that's like a freedom hospital, I'm even thinking way outside the box, right? God puts people together who have the same idea or similar talking, and so that is literally a conversation that's been in the works since I mentioned it to Dr. Gold. I've mentioned it now to Dr. Fleming's team. We actually maybe going to make some headway on that, which is really cool. So who knows what it will turn into one day, and I hope that we get investors that will invest big in a place that we can have options, and maybe even different types of medicine. How cool would it be to have holistic medicine or Eastern medicine with Western medicine has supported us all the way up until this point, and all of a sudden isn't making any money. So right now, I'm the only one working, and it's our family. Like, we have school debt, right? We have all the things, and we're not perfect. We have little credit cards here and there. We have just, the normal family stuff. And I can't quit my job, okay? So if everyone's looking at me like, oh, you're getting an exemption, like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna provide for my family. And you know what? I'm gonna stick it out and get into this hospital system and work hard at helping from the inside out, which is what I intended to do, and I believe God made me to do this. So I'm in a different position. I am not quitting my job. So if you need an exemption because you're like me and you're not able to quit your job, you're the only income provider, the last thing I want you to do is feel forced to go get something you disagree with, whether it's religious or otherwise, just because you feel like you're the breadwinner and there's nothing else you can do. There's people who will go and do it just to provide for their families, you guys. That is coercion. That is not consent. Consent means you can say no. Consent, true consent, means you have the ability to say no. So not everyone's in the same spot. Maybe you're ready, you've been in nurse for years, and you're like, I'm done, this is it. And that's great because we need those people. We need those lawsuits. We need that. We need a strike or whatever we need to do. But just so you know, the exemption process too, people will tell me, well, my student is in a private school, whatever kind of school that is. And I will say, well, if they won't accept your exemptions, they don't have to. So unfortunately, some private businesses do not accept state money, and some private schools do not accept state money. Therefore, they're not bound by exemption laws in Texas. So that might mean you have to pull your kid out. That might mean you have to do other things. We have had to make other choices for our family and our kids because of some of those situations. We pulled our kids out of an ISD last year because of the masks and everything like that. We paid a private teacher who did a pod homeschooling type of situation. I couldn't homeschool anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I had to work. But we paid someone else to do it. And now we have a private school that doesn't do that. There's other options, but sometimes those cost money, and I understand. So we are still fighting in the school districts, meaning showing up to the school board meetings to help these kids and stuff like that. So that's really important that you come to your school board meetings, your local school board meetings. I don't even have kids in the district anymore. I still go to the meetings to help these kids. So I hope that you guys are showing up. I know Dallas and Fort Worth had a big amount of people there last night. We need to keep that going. So as far as any business that accepts any state money, which hospitals do because they accept Medicaid, Medicare, but any states that do, they have to, or state school, state colleges, public schools, things like that, they have to accept it. Now we have 3 types of exemptions in Texas. There's medical, there's religious, and there's conscientious. But I will say another fail that's happened in the medical freedom world is that religious and conscientious are one-to-one. So when you go onto the website, it is now one form that you go to, which is a really sticky situation because a lot of states have lost their conscientious exemption and their religious exemption, and all that's left is medical. For example, California has to go through the Senate to get approved. So you don't even just have to have a doctor say, yes, you have a medical reason. Now your doctor has to get scrutinized by the state and say, yes, they actually do have a medical reason, and that violates the doctor-patient relationship. So we don't want that here, which is why we started fighting 2 years ago before COVID ever happened. So we're trying to prevent that, but there is it's just interesting to me that they've already lumped them together, and people don't even notice. So I just want to point that out to you guys. Medical-wise, as far as COVID-19 or any other vaccine, you can have an allergy. So there are components to the vaccine. There are exemptions for people who have had allergic reactions in the past. Now what they want, and I know this sounds awful, but what they want to give an exemption for is only anaphylaxis. But there's a multitude of allergies that can happen from a vaccine. And I'm living proof because I was fully vaccinated, I got my flu shot a few years ago, literally had bubbling under my skin, itched myself in my sleep, bloody. And I had never had issues before, but I was like this, I couldn't stop, and I was even doing it in my sleep, and I had a systemic reaction. To the point where my thumb was 3 times its size, it turned black, and they thought that I wasn't going to be able to keep it. So that to me is a serious reaction. I'd like to keep my thumb, my appendages, all my things, right? But they were like, oh, it's not anaphylaxis. You're like, sorry, no. My doctor was like, you deserve a medical exemption. So some people are like that. One of the components of many vaccines is polyethylene glycol. You guys probably know it as Miralax. It's over the counter, but it does cause a lot of systemic reactions. So it's just one thing that maybe you could point to, or if you've had an issue with that in the past, you can get it. One doctor told me if you've ever had diarrhea, you took it over the counter at home, you had a reaction, you can actually call that in, put that into your medical record, so that's something that you can, have on your medical record, that you've had an allergic reaction to that. So that's just something, just an example of medical exemptions, having an allergy, things like that. Religious, I'm gonna grab my phone real quick, sorry. I use my phone so much it dies like 10 times a day. Okay. Now, if you're looking for a religious exemption, you're gonna wanna write a little fast and furious. So, just letting you know. I'm gonna go kind of quick because I don't want all this time to be spent on me, and I really wanna give Dr. Fleming his time. So, religious exemptions here. Just so you know, everyone's like, the COVID vaccine is not approved. That's a lie. The COVID vaccine was approved under a different name for 16 and above. Okay, so let's just clarify that right away. Comirnaty, so C-O-M-I-R-N-A-T-Y, Comirnaty is what it's called. It was approved for 16 and over. The reason they didn't approve it for the 12 to 16 it was because they were not in the trial. They were not in the trials. So that's why it wasn't approved for that. So it's still got its no liability emergency use authorization, and now it's also approved. By the way, they say they can use them intermittently. So what it was ruled was this. Just a second. Okay. So the FDA said that the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine under the EUA should remain unlicensed, but that it can be used interchangeably with the newly licensed Comirnaty product. And then it says that it would be legally distinct, but the differences between the two do not impact safety or effectiveness. So that's the most accurate data you can have as of today. So obviously there's a difference between EUA and licensed. Also, just FYI, no matter which one you're participating in a trial, right? It is a trial that you need to be aware of, that if you want to participate in that, that is a choice. But it is a trial, which if you're not fully informed and you were not allowed to say no, then it would be against the Nuremberg Code and federal regulations, which I can cite all the codes, but I won't waste your time with that. You guys can look that stuff up.
Yeah, most of the discussion, they actually issued 2 letters, and they cover 2 different things, and the evidence is totally lacking in certain cases. They're different, and they don't overlap, so they refuse both of them.
Okay, so we're going to move on real quick. So we get to, here is how, if you're looking to get a religious exemption, and this is something that you're interested in, and this is what you believe, okay? Obviously I'm not saying lie to people, like you have in yourself, like your own belief, right? But you can't file a religious exemption and claim that it's against the Nuremberg Code, and it's this and that, like, basically, if you're going off of it's immoral, it's against the Civil Rights Act, that is not a religious reason, right? So I'm here in the church, right, trying to help y'all. If you want a religious exemption, it's got to be a religious reason. And that's just how it's going to be approved. Because some of these people, they're calling me and they're crying and they're like, my exemption didn't get approved, I don't know what to do. So we can appeal, by the way, and there's other things we can do and should do. However, if you haven't filled yours out yet, because some of the hospital systems have until September 10th to fill their first one out, then you don't start with a story, you don't tell any information, and this is just examples, okay? These are people's examples. So, hang on. Okay, so a lot of people who are Christians use aborted fetal cells. Now, in the research of, development of, and production of, all of these vaccines qualify. So even though only one of them has aborted fetal cells in it, all of those qualify if you word it like in the research of, development of, and production of. So that is something. If you are pro-life, if you're not pro-life, that's fine, let's not argue about it. We're just here to help the people who are, for this specific reason. Some of the verses that people like to quote is 1 Corinthians 16, verses 19 through 20. Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, you were bought with a price, glorified in your body, God in your body. So some people say that about aborted fetal cells. Many vaccines contain aborted fetal cells, by the way, not just COVID. So if you didn't know that, and we're in the production of, the research of. Vaccines can contain neurotoxins, they can contain hazardous substances, where if you actually took them and swallowed them, that would be, not good. Adenovirus, animal ingredients, people who are vegan, but you can't say I'm a vegan and therefore I'm an infidel. Your religious belief, your sincerely held religious belief. That would be AJ. The chemical waste, things like that. If you say it violates my closely held religious belief, the additives, the contaminants, from a biblical standpoint, would be contamination of the blood, which the blood is the life force in Christianity. The blood is the life force, and it's to be kept pure under all circumstances and free from contaminants. And there's many verses you can point to for that. Genesis 9, verse 4, Leviticus 17, verse 11, 17, verse 14, Deuteronomy 12, verse 23, Leviticus 17, verse 10, Acts 15, verse 20, and Acts 15, verse 29. So all of this is getting recorded. Hopefully you guys can repeat that. We can post it on Texas for Medical Freedom on Telegram so you guys can have it. But basically all of these verses talk about the blood. And people on the forums, by the way, they're asking you right now if you have had previous vaccines. Why do you think they're asking people that? Because they'll say, well, you already contaminated your blood, right? Like in the past. Well, I was a child when I was vaccinated. I don't know about y'all, but I didn't have a choice about that. It's kind of like getting baptized as an infant. You're like, well, I didn't actually make that choice for myself. And so for me, that's what I would say back to that question is, yes, but it was back then and I was unaware. Even a few years ago when I got my flu shot, I wasn't aware of some of these things. So I wasn't aware at the time. And now that I'm aware, it is to him who it is in, right? That knows. So if you don't know, then you're not held accountable for that. So that's what I would say about that. But anyway, so as far as it has been effective for some of these people who have messaged me theirs. I'm not going to read them because that's like their private, information. But it has been effective. It's been going through the systems. I'm trying to tell you exactly what people have gotten approved so that you can get help if this is your belief, if it is. Let's see. Thou shalt not murder. So another support, right, for people who don't believe in aborted fetal cells being a part of the research, development, production of. Children are recognized from God at the point of conception, knit together in the womb, so Psalm 139. Blessings from God, valued and loved, we are created in His image. All killing is condemned, so thou shalt not kill. People use 10 Commandments. The prophet Amos condemns the Ammonites because they ripped open expectant mothers in Gilead. So that would be a baby in the womb. So anyway, you can choose those things. You can even include, there's a verse in the Bible in the Greek where it says pharmakia, and pharmakia is actually in the Bible if you didn't know. And I was like, no way, I did Bible theology degree, right? So I thought somebody was just, kind of misunderstanding it. So I went and looked it up for myself one day and I was like, oh my gosh, it's there. It's pretty deep. So check that out. I don't want to continue on and on, but what I do want to tell you is this. If you need a medical or religious exemption, or if you qualify for both, file both. I'm going to file both on me. And, because I qualify for both. And what I would say is just an encouragement that if it doesn't go through, there are appeals, there are other things we can do, and I want you to reach out to me. I don't want you to just try it by yourself and figure out what else we can do to help you guys. But I don't, and the way to reach me is, the best way to reach me is Telegram. Telegram is like my new jam. I'm on it all the time. I help people. And it's because I've been kicked off Facebook, which, it should be shocking, right? So United States for Medical Freedom used to have 40,000 members. Texas for Medical Freedom had about 10,000. And by the way, they shut that down the week before they took our freedom, the week before. I don't think it's an accident, and I'm not quitting. So whatever they wanted to happen is not being successful. I've still helped thousands of people get access to early treatment for COVID. Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin is my personal favorite. I work with the FLCCC doctors all the time. They are my favorite. And I will say this new data came out. This is what I'm going to leave you guys with. This new data came out from one of the major hospital systems around here. And they probably aren't going to like that I tell you guys this. But you know how they keep telling you that all the people there are unvaccinated? Well, that's not a lie. But how many people are dying that are unvaccinated matters, right, versus vaccinated. So out of this list, out of 701 admits, 94 were vaccinated, 554 were not vaccinated, and then unknown was 53. So like out of that, a big portion of those people were unvaccinated, right? But talking about the ICU stays or the death rate is the main deal. So the main thing to know about the unvaccinated was the mortality rate was 8%, 8.3 to be exact, and the mortality rate of the vaccinated was 10.6. So they died actually more often than the unvaccinated. So it was very interesting to me. I mean, and if not, it's equal. So it can't be like manipulated in such a way to say that all the unvaccinated people in the hospitals, all of them are dying. So this is accurate data up until June 23rd. Or since June 23rd. June 23rd up until now, excuse me. So this is very accurate data that someone, I won't rat her out, of course, gave to me. And I just think it goes to show you that, I mean, if anything, it would be equal, slightly less, that the vaccinated are 8% mortality rate and the vaccinated were 10. So when you hear that that's all that's happening is the deaths of the unvaccinated, so therefore go and get your vaccine. Because they're using that, right? They're emailing us saying, the reason that we're actually going to make you guys all get this shot is because all unvaccinated people in the hospital systems. And that just goes to show you that the vaccine is working. But the vaccinated people who are coming in are dying at a greater rate than the unvaccinated who are coming in. So even though, yes, we are receiving more unvaccinated people in there, I would agree. But that's also because more people are unvaccinated, right? Because they're having questions about this. They don't want to participate in a medical clinical trial or something like that. And this is my friend's exemption. I was just going to look it over to see if there's anything else. So deeply held, faith, deeply held belief, quoting scriptures, all these things. This is how you can get something through. By the way, religious freedom is protected by the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution. Religious freedom is also double protected in Texas because we protect the constitutional rights. So we can ask for religious accommodations. It has been supported by the Supreme Court in May of 2021 that the EEOC would support religious medical freedom. So that's something to hang your hat on. It's something that will be very effective. And I hope that any of this information helps you. And if, I don't ever want you to feel like your only choice is just to go get vaccinated because you need to do your job. So we are going to work together. If you get denied, if something happens, I intend to make a lawsuit. I am not a rich woman, but hopefully we can raise some money. That these DFW hospitals do need lawsuits too, not just Houston, but DFW hospitals need that. And we need to use, by the way, no offense to Jared Woodfill, I love him, talked to him many times, but I don't think we should put all our eggs in one basket. I don't think we should only choose Jared as the guy, because I think if that's unsuccessful, we need other eggs in other baskets to go and move forward. So hopefully the rest of them can talk from their heart about what's going on, but anyway, I think you guys learned something.